Hello everybody, welcome to the Multi-Voice Entertainment. I am the Multi-Voice Reviewer. I have many voices, but one opinion. And, today I'm going to talk about a certain superhero which was part of my childhood, believe it or not. Now, of course, I always talked about Batman because I grew up watching Batman ever since the Tim Burton movie and, of course, the animated series that they used to show on Fox when I was a kid. But there was another superhero that I got into besides Batman. I'm going to be talking about a superhero who is a swamp monster. Yeah, now I know that the one I'm going to be talking about isn't the first plant monster, because a long time ago there was already another plant monster who calls himself the Heap. But besides the Heap, there was a comic book artist who goes by the name of, trying to get his name right, Len Wein. He decided to create a horror comic but have a plant monster who's a hero. And therefore, he created Swamp Thing. And most of all, he appeared in the comic book called The House of Secrets, issue 92 in 1971. Now, one thing I know about the story, now, it's not exactly the same story that I'm going to tell you today. This one was an Elseworld story, because this was a beginning of a certain story where it's about a guy who goes by the name of Alex Olson, and he had a wife named Linda, and he had a friend who goes by the name of Damien Lynch. And it turned out that Damien Lynch killed Alex and put his body in the swamp and married his beloved Linda. But now he becomes a swamp monster, and Linda, even though she married Damien, she still loves Alex. And that is driving Damien nuts. And since she doesn't love him, I guess he thinks it's a good idea to kill her as well. What is it with him and killing people? But of course she gets saved by the swamp monster. And that was the end of that story. He finally got his revenge. Well, one thing I always heard, never trust anybody with the name Damien. I guess when anybody watched The Omen, I mean, it's pretty obvious. Don't trust anybody named Damien. But after that short story, they have decided to make a continuation comic book series of Swamp Thing, where they changed the story a little bit more, but the writing took over by none other than Alan Moore. You know Alan Moore, the same one who did the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen I did the review of. Well, Alan Moore, he took the premise of the story, and this is how the story goes. It started with a scientist who goes by the name of Alec, with a C, not Alex with a K, X. Alec Holland. He was married to a woman named Linda. And of course, he had a best friend who goes by the name of Matt Cable. And how the story goes, that he was a scientist who worked on plants. And he was trying to find a cure for world hunger by creating plants that is able to make plant grow at an alarming rate. And if he can use that kind of if he invented something like that, he can make plants, he would make vegetables grow And that will put an end to world hunger, having a tomato that is 10 times the size than a normal tomato. And probably make it last forever. And much to his surprise, he made a breakthrough. Alex Holland had a breakthrough. He created a formula. It made plants grow 10 times the size in the actual plant. Until all of a sudden, an evil bad guy who used to be a former Nazi, but now he's a mad scientist. What is it with Nazis and superheroes? It's starting to get really... It's getting kind of old. But anyway, a former Nazi named Dr. Anton O'Kane. Now, one thing about him, after World War II ended, he must have hid in America in the bayou, since the superhero takes place in the bayou swamp. Good old Louisiana. Down on the bayou, down on the bayou. Anyway, Anton O'Kane was trying to steal the formula to Alex's success on his breakthrough, but they both struggled, and he accidentally dropped the formula, and the formula burst into flames. And of course, Arcane had his men trash his lab, destroy everything, and left him behind. So Alec, covered in flames, ran into the swamp and jumped in. And then years later, Alec Holland turned into a mutant combination of man and plant called Swamp Thing. And of course, when he and Matt Cable, at first he thought it was the Swamp Thing who killed his friend Alec, but he started to see that that Swamp Thing is Alec, and of course his wife Linda even seen that too. But Linda thinks that the relationship between her and the Plant Man wouldn't work out, so she left with Matt. Now, throughout the comic, Linda moved on and continued on appearing in other comics, while Matt Cable, on the other hand, he get involved with the Doom Patrol until he got killed, and then he came back in Neil Gaiman's Sandman, which I'm going to talk about next, since Netflix have the series showing up tomorrow, which I'm going to watch soon. Which I'm going to watch tomorrow. But anyway, since his friends, Matt Cable and Linda, went off on their own, Alex stayed in the swamp until Alan Moore, and it kind of picked up where Alan Moore picked up where they left off on the Swamp Thing graphic novel, which they call it Swamp Thing Saga. And throughout the whole comic, it's the same story they did over again, except one thing that Alan Moore did. He kind of showed that turns out that the Swamp Thing is not Alec Holland. He just absorbed his memory while he died in the swamp, because he found Alec skeletal remain in the swamp. So pretty much, Swamp Thing is just a plant avatar who absorbed the memory of Alec Holland, and of course taking revenge against Arcane. Until all of a sudden he meets a beautiful woman who turns out that she is Dr. Anton Arcane's stepdaughter, Abby Arcane. Now, Abby Arcane was going against her dad because she knew how evil he is, so she continued on living with with Alec and even try to help him along the way. While Arcane, on the other hand, I mean, he keeps on doing sick and twisted things. And of course it was hinting that he's also a demon because I guess somehow he sold his soul to the devil for his twisted experiments. And of course, another thing it's a pretty interesting there. In the comics, in Alan Moore's comics, Swamp Thing even crossed over with the Hellblazer himself, the supernatural private investigator, John Constantine. And he also crossed over with the rest of the DC superheroes. And of course, one thing that Swamp Thing discovered, that he was a member of the Parliament of Trees. The Parliament of Trees are a group of plant-like avatars. Anytime anybody died in the swamps, or died in the forest, or anywhere in the woods, their memories will be absorbed by a guardian of the trees and the woods and the plants. So, pretty much it's a superhero story about the environment. And believe it or not, in the later comics, Swamp Thing and Abby finally had a child. And her name is TV Holland. T-E-F-E. And when the comic books got so popular, this is where I got into Swamp Thing when I was a kid. Because back in 1982, Wes Craven, the guy who is behind Freddy Krueger, before he made Freddy Krueger, he made Swamp Thing in 1982, starring John Carpenter's ex-wife, Adrienne Barbeau. And then in 1989, same year that the Tim Burton movie came out, they made Return of the Swamp Thing, starring the lovely Heather Locklear. And then after the sequel of the movie, they decided to do a Swamp Thing TV series, and that's where I first noticed the Swamp Thing. Well, of course, when I was young, I noticed the Swamp Thing from the sequel and not the first movie, because I was born in 1985, and the first movie came out before I was born. Anyway, I was born in 85, and I remember when I was really young, I saw the Return of Swamp Thing when I was young, and of course it was around the same time where I saw the second Batman movie. And then all of a sudden, in 1990, there was a TV series of the Swamp Thing. The TV show started in 1990 and ended in 1993, and the actor who played Swamp Thing from from the TV shows and the movie is none other than Dick Durock. And of course, I remember that there was a cartoon series around the same year as a TV show, Swamp Thing the Cartoons. And I remember when I was young, I collected most of the action figures of Swamp Thing until I just have the action figure of Swamp Thing itself and Arcane, which I would like to show you, but sadly they're in my storage. And also, after the cartoon, I mean, when I got older, I always kept wondering, when would Swamp Thing ever get back to popularity? I mean, I was hoping that the Justice League at least introduced Swamp Thing, one way or another and make him be the member of the Justice League. Until all of a sudden, out comes the New 52 Swamp Thing. Now, I don't like the New 52 because it's supposed to be a reboot to all the DC superheroes for those who couldn't catch up with the classics, which I don't really like. I mean, I prefer the classic myself. But one thing, I mean, like I said, I wanted Swamp Thing to be the member of the Justice League. Well, surprisingly, he is. He's a member of the Justice League Dark. Now, for those of you who don't know who the Justice League Dark are, unlike the Justice League I mentioned who battles against supervillains, the Justice League Dark dealt with supernatural things like monsters and ghosts and also demons from hell, along with the help of John Constantine and also Dead Man, Zatanna, many more. And then, much of my surprise, ever since when they kept doing TV series of DC superheroes like the Arrowverse and everything, when I heard about the DC Universe channel, they did a brand new series of Swamp Thing, the new series. Now, I thought it was really I was really happy that they finally brought Swamp Thing back into the screen. Until this. What the hell? I mean, they had a good thing going. I mean, son of a bitch. Those dumbasses had a good thing going and they had to cancel it. And the last thing I heard about the series, that it was really good. I mean, they had a good thing going and they had to screw things up. What the hell? I hate it when things like this happen. And of course, while I'm on the subject about swamp superheroes, I remember, and in case some of you are going to be telling me about this one, and I know about it, Marvel had their own swamp monster called Man-Thing. But don't get me started on the movie, because the movie was terrible. I mean, Man-Thing was supposed to be the superhero, a good swamp monster, and when they made the movie, I mean, they used the same names from the comics, but they made the swamp monster a complete monster. That's it. It was just a normal, old-fashioned monster horror movie. Nothing more. And I guess this is why Swamp Thing always be the best, because he's been around longer than any other swamp monster you ever heard of. Well, this is my review for the day. Any of you who enjoy my review of Swamp Thing, please leave a comment down below, hit like and subscribe for more. And tomorrow, Sandman is going to show up on Netflix. So stay tuned next week, because tomorrow I'm going to start watching the Sandman series and probably do a good review of the Sandman. And I also heard that Neil Gaiman is going to be sort of behind the scenes of the series, so I'm sure the Sandman is going to be excellent. So, see you later.